Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a notoriously tricky grammar rule that catches out even the most advanced English learners. I mean, if you've ever found yourself completely tangling up your sentences when you're just trying to sound professional or polite, trust me, you are not alone. Okay, let's dive into this and master the art of combining gerunds, advisory verbs, and the passive voice. By the end of this session, you're going to have a foolproof system for building these sentences perfectly every single time.
Picture this, right? You're writing a super important email, or maybe you're giving a big presentation. You've got an active sentence in your head, and your instinct is to directly translate it into a passive sentence to sound a bit more formal. But suddenly, the whole sentence just falls apart. It sounds clunky, awkward, and, well, just plain wrong. This is exactly the grammar trap that so many of us fall into. We kind of assume that all passive transformations follow the exact same rules. But as you'll see, when a gerund gets involved, everything changes.
So, to get us out of this trap, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet the gerund. Then we'll look at the passive problem. After that, I'll walk you through the 5-step transformation. And finally, we'll look at some real-world applications.
All right, Section 1. Meet the gerund. Let's lay down our foundational concepts.
Now, before we transform anything, we have to ask what actually is a gerund. Well, quite simply, it's just the ing form of a verb that's stepping in to act like a noun. Take a look at these everyday examples. Reading improves vocabulary. Swimming is good exercise. In these sentences, reading and swimming are obviously actions, yes, but grammatically, they're functioning as things, as nouns. They're actually the subjects of these sentences.
Now, gerunds become incredibly important when they follow certain verbs. Let's anchor the basics here by walking through what we can call the Big 5 advisory verbs. These are the ones you use constantly in professional and academic settings: advise, insist on, propose, recommend, and suggest. When you use these verbs in an active sentence, they follow a really strict pattern. It's subject plus verb plus gerund. Like, she advised taking notes, or he insisted on leaving early. Notice how naturally the gerund just follows the advisory verb to complete the thought?
Moving on to Section 2, the passive problem. Let's get into the core grammatical conflict here.
So what happens when we try to turn these sentences into the passive voice? I want you to take a moment and consider why gerunds completely resist becoming the direct subject of a passive sentence. Usually, to make a passive sentence, we take the object of the active sentence and just move it to the front. But when that object is a gerund phrase attached to an advisory verb, doing a direct swap creates an absolute grammatical car crash.
Let me show you what I mean. Take the active thought, he insisted on speaking English. If we attempt a direct passive transformation, we get this. English was insisted on speaking, right? It's terribly clunky and just incorrect. Gerunds simply do not become the subject of a passive sentence directly like this. Now, contrast that with this incredibly elegant solution. He insisted that English should be spoken. Wow. Suddenly, the meaning is crystal clear, the tone is super professional, and the grammar is spot on. English completely sidesteps that clunky direct passive by creating what we call a that clause.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 5-step transformation. It's time to introduce your secret formula.
I really want you to treat this formula like a groundbreaking scientific discovery. Honestly, because once you memorize it, you will solve this grammar puzzle every single time. So the crucial point is this specific structure: subject plus verb plus that plus a new subject plus should plus be plus the past participle, which we often just call V3. I know, it looks like a lot of moving parts, but trust me, it creates a remarkably smooth sentence.
Let's methodically walk through the 5-step conversion process using a mental example. Imagine the active sentence, she recommended repairing the bridge. Step 1, find the gerund. In our sentence, the gerund is repairing. Step 2, identify the object of that gerund. Ask yourself, what is being repaired? The bridge. Step 3, take that object and move it right after the word that to start your new clause. So now we have, she recommended that the bridge. Step 4, add the magic words should be. And finally, Step 5, use the past participle, or V3, of your original action. Repairing becomes repaired. Put the whole shebang together and you get, she recommended that the bridge should be repaired.
Let's move along and see how this builds with another example. Take the active sentence, they suggested building a new school. Let's run it through our machine. The gerund is building. The object is a new school. We drop in our that, add our should be, and turn building into built. And out pops our perfect passive sentence. They suggested that a new school should be built. It is incredibly satisfying when you actually see the underlying logic at work, isn't it?
Now, what's really interesting about this is a critical warning you need to keep in mind as you practice. You absolutely must watch out for a very common learner mistake, which is confusing infinitives with gerunds after our big five verbs. Consider this incorrect phrasing. She recommended to repair the bridge. This is wrong. Verbs like recommend, suggest, and propose take the gerund form, definitely not the infinitive to form. It must always be, she recommended repairing the bridge in the active voice. Because, think about it, if you start with a broken active sentence, your passive transformation is going to fail before you even begin.
Real quick, before we look at real-world context, I want to give you a bonus tip for highly formal English. Consider the standard passive we just learned, that a new school should be built. It's completely correct and very common. But in highly formal documents, you might see a slight variation, that a new school be built. Notice how the word should has just completely disappeared? This structure is known as the manative subjunctive. It means the exact same thing, it just elevates the formality slightly. Both are perfectly acceptable.
All right, Section 4, Real-World Applications. Let's see exactly how this rule operates in professional contexts.
When you master this structure, you unlock a highly sophisticated way of communicating. And this brilliantly illustrates how professionals naturally use this exact passive structure across completely different fields. In business, the manager proposed that salaries should be increased. In health, the doctor recommended that salt intake should be reduced. And in environmental science, scientists recommend that forests should be protected. This grammatical tool lets you express advice or proposals clearly, objectively, and authoritatively, without having to focus on exactly who is going to do the increasing, reducing, or protecting.
Okay, let's quickly distill our key takeaways. First, remember your big five verbs: advise, insist on, propose, recommend, suggest. In the active voice, they always follow the pattern of subject plus verb plus gerund. But when you need the passive voice, you must use your new secret formula: subject plus verb plus that plus the object plus should be plus your V3 past participle. And finally, always watch out for those infinitive traps. No to before the verbs in the active voice.
We've covered a lot of ground today, unpicking the mechanics behind one of the English language's most elegant structures. You now have the absolute blueprint to turn clunky translations into smooth, native-level phrasing. So, I leave you with this question. Which sentence will you flawlessly transform today? Whether it's an email to a colleague or an essay for class, take your new secret formula out for a spin. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really look forward to diving into our next topic with you soon. Keep learning and keep explaining.